This is Jeremy, CIT 261 with
Dennis Bingham,
Jeff Mantinga,
and Zevius, he's here. Anyways, well, I'm going to show my code, and then I believe that Dennis is going to show his. So this is it. We'll start with arrays. So let me show the code half and half. Open up Adam here. Come on, Adam, you're killing me.
So just to check with you guys, did you guys just get everything from looking online, or is there specific?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you mean like where we found that what we're supposed to do, or?
Yeah. So I mean, I know the topics. I was just like, are we all just scrounging the internet to find information on how to do it?
Right.
That's basically how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that makes sense to me. That was a little unclear, so my bad on that.
Well, it's definitely good to check that for sure.
Yeah, it's friggin' annoying.
Yeah, it is. Well, how could you make a manual for this class, though, when you think about it? It's just too crazy. There's so much, like 13 coding topics. The book's going to be huge. Anyway, so let's start with the arrays. Basically, I put a bunch of IDs that I can manipulate with JavaScript up here, and I called a function. I didn't know how to do this without a function. I don't know. So I like, you're not supposed to mix them, it says, because that's like secondary knowledge, like working knowledge. But I'm like, well, I don't know how not to mix them. So whatever. So I made an array here with just a bunch of numbers in it that are, and it's got a string as well. And the idea was to remove that string when I click a button. So that's basically the idea that I had for that. There's a bunch of like unorganized by alphabet fruits that I'm going to organize by clicking, again, a button.
We presented with terms of service. We want to read terms of service.
Terms of service.
Be able to use the API.
What?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, whatever.
YouTube
Make sure you read the terms of service. All right. Empty. So this is, I'm going to fill this empty array with data. And so that's what that's going to do. So these are ideas. For me, it's hardest to get the ideas so that I can like show what I can do. It's like I have to know what I can do with an array first. So yeah, this will basically find the length of the array. So I started showing properties here. So we got array length, and also that you can use indexes. It's another property of arrays that you can just say, specify, hey, I want a certain index, and the second index of, well, actually this is the third because it starts at 0, right? The second index of numbers array right now is, should be 2. Yeah, there it is, 2. Yep. And how long is it? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right now. So, but when we run click me, it's going to remove the string. So this is going to turn into 4. Oh, actually, that's right. I learned something. So JavaScript, this is already run. This is JavaScript that's already ran. So it won't interact unless I do this again, where it asks, unless I put this down inside of this function, it won't run again, if that makes sense. So if I just like copied this, slapped it in here, then it would actually change the array itself when I click it. At least it should, but it should be in here. I can't find it. I'm trying to rush now. Sorry. Well, I'll just Control Z that because I don't alter the code anymore that I already have. Let's see what else. So as you can see, it's sorted A to Z, and also sorted the numbers. Oh, I actually removed the string from the numbers, which was right here, because I only wanted numbers in my string. So I'm trying to think of situations where I would want to edit, real life situations where I want to edit an array and say there's some data in there that I needed to remove. I could, pop the last one off is what I used, which is pretty useful because you just do numbers pop. and it'll just remove the last element in an array, which is pretty cool. What else here? Yeah, that's what I said. Numbers has string in it, but no more. Oh yeah, this array that was empty that I declared here, I filled it with some data. I had to convert it to a string first, I remember, because, well, it had in order to display the array and print it out to console, or not console, but to the page, I had to convert it to a string. There's probably other ways to do that, but it was bothering me a little bit there. But the push method is how I push the data, and this is what I push to it. Yeah, as you can see here, it's pushed a bunch of numbers. And let's see, lastly, well, not last, second before last, I sorted an array in alphabetical order, which is this one right here. And lastly, I combined some arrays. So I basically took the numbers array and the empty array, which are both have numbers. Now that I removed the string from numbers, I filled this one with data. I can now put them together to form this. So any questions on that? I know that was super lengthy. I'm sorry.
Quick question. How did you alphabetize them? I was just trying to find that spot in your code.
Dot sort right here. So it's actually a built-in array method that will do that for you. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's way cool.
There's a lot of built-in stuff with arrays, but not associative arrays, which I'll cover next. So associative arrays are a lot different. In fact, they're not, I wouldn't even call them arrays. They're actually just objects. So as I put up here, what's the difference? Very different. It's a true object. Objects have names for each line item. Sorry, I'm actually like playing D&D, my guys, at the same time, so my apologies. But as I said, they all have a name for it. So as for example, here's me declaring an object, which is also an associative array. So I named them by indexes because I'm used to arrays, right? So I named it 1. So this is called, I believe, an element or something like that, or no, that's HTML. I'm not really sure what these specific ones are called, but keys, that's what it was. Thank you for reminding me. I was like, I know what it was, but I couldn't remember. Yes, right. The keys. Thank you, Dennis. You're awesome. I was like, crap. Thank you. So then this key will be assigned 4, the key 2 will be assigned 3, and so on and so on. I can make this as long as I want. So I try to recreate what I was doing in the arrays, but some things just didn't work out. It's pretty difficult to do because they're just so two different things. When I was trying to make them, at first I was like, oh, they're not that different. They just have named keys. No, they're extremely different. The properties and methods that you use for arrays are not going to be the same. Like you can't do like object.length. It doesn't work. So you have to do it a little bit differently, like object.keys, and then you do the object name.length, and then it'll work. So you have to declare it a lot differently. It's definitely not similar. I mean, it is a little bit, I guess. It does say .length, but a lot of the built-in functions, like the sort function, just doesn't exist in the objects. So, yeah, you can do a dot instead of the parameter or the brackets there to get that same kind of feel. Say, hey, return the index 1, but it's really not the index; it's the key. So they're just very different things for sure. But yeah. That one was a little bit tougher for sure to learn. Any questions on this one? All right, cool beans.
No.
Loops murdered me. I learned a lot in loops. So like it says right here, after hours of looking at trying to get this to work, I realized that the paragraph or whatever I'm manipulating has to go above the script. So you see how the script body is here? If you try and put these after the script, for some reason it doesn't work. And I'm still trying to figure out why, but that was a literally hours of suffering. This was fun times. Anyway, so this is very simple. This is one of the first ones I did. I basically did a for loop that says I is equal to 10, and I decided to do it going backwards. I wanted to count down to 0. So that's what I did here, 10, 9, 8, 7, 0, till you get to 0. So when I is not equal to, that's strange, that shouldn't work, not equal to -1. I'm not sure what I was doing there. I think I meant to say less.
You're counting down from 10.
I definitely am counting down for 10 because it's negative, but I'm saying like the loop should be infinite because it's not equal to negative. So once it hit, okay, that does work. It's just a little bit different. That's right. I remember that. I was experimenting here. So instead of doing like, while I is greater than 0, for example, that's what most people would do, I decided to do it's not equal to -1 because it'll eventually hit -1 and then it'll stop. So it's another way to do it. So then I decided to take the text that was already there and concatenate it. That's what the plus equals means, with the value of I, which is changing here, and then add a break so we get the whole countdown. I was going for the Happy New Year, but I got really frustrated and didn't end up doing that. Anyway, next I decided to do trying to treat it like a database. And I should have left this, and this is, I actually did a associative array here without really understanding what I was doing. But anyways, so I made an associative array, and I looped through each column in the database, basically, and I add to a variable called data. So I add to each one of these. So I basically say, okay, what's in this one? John. Okay, assign that to the variable data. What's in the next one? Okay, it's Smith. Add that to the variable data and then print it out at the end. So in the end, and I also did a space so that they're not like stuck together. So John, in the end, you get the data from one row of a database. I was trying to think of ways I would use this in an actual application. Lastly, I basically sorted out two numbers. From greater to smaller. The code's a lot more complex than it should be. This is way harder way to do this. I know it. But I was just trying to think again. For me, I have to have a cool or an idea that would make it more than just I'm just running this for only one time and I'll never use this again. So I was trying to make this cooler than it was. But when I add a third number, it does not work out. It does not work out at all. And I was messing with this, trying to get it to work. I added the problem, my logic is just not right. So I may have to do that one again because it just wasn't correct. It really wasn't. Anyway, so that was loops. That was a painful experience. Let's see. Functions. This one was a lot funner to do. I decided to do a concept where kind of like a WordPress, but very simple, right? So I would ask the user for what their website would want to look like. So you click the button, it gives a prompt from JavaScript and says, hey, welcome to Let's Build a Website. Please enter the header. And so I'm like, I could just leave the default my header. It's fine. Just show you the code. I also added default so I can run this multiple times. So in case there is an error, it's easier to, I don't have to keep entering data in this. So it's asking for a paragraph. So I'm just going to throw a paragraph in there. It's fine. Asking lastly for a footer. And then it'll just hide that div that was there before with the button. And then it'll display your website, right? I know it's very simple. So forgive me for that. But I enjoyed it. It was fun. So I wanted to do an image, but I realized that's DOM. And I was like, well, I'm just going to wait for that. But yeah, eventually I'm going to do this again for DOM. Click this, it'll import an image. I'll just paste the URL in there. It'll set the background and everything, which will be really cool. So how do you hide it? If you're interested in hiding the div, I made a variable called hide, and I basically this was not necessary. Now that I realize this, you could have just pasted this, down here in front of that, but it's fine. Basically what this changes the CSS is what it does, and sets the display to none. And it also doesn't take any space. So it's not like this, if it took space, this would actually be down here somewhere. So it's kind of cool that it just like wipes it. And again, this is how you get user input with JavaScript. You just type in, you assign it to a variable, right? And you need to prompt, which is the pop-up. And this is the message, and this is the default value in there. And I also did a checksum here just to make sure that there's data there. If it's not equal to null, then go ahead and assign the value. Otherwise, it'll do nothing. So, any questions here?
Nope.
Cool. So for variables, I was trying to make this simple because I didn't want to. I mean, it's just variables, so I don't want to overthink it. So it's just very simple stuff. You got numbers, you got strings, you can even do floats, which I don't think I included here, but I learned later that you can do like a 4.0, very, very basic stuff. And then I signed those values to these paragraphs up here. Very, very simple, but I felt like it's just variables, so why go complicated? Conditional statements. These are really fun if statements. Basically, these might be a little long. Yeah, I might have to go full screen. Full screen here. I made, again, I did the same thing. I'm replacing these paragraphs, but this time I decided to give them a value. Since we're replacing the paragraphs, I thought, well, it'd be cool if I say I broke something, one of my scripts, and instead of replacing the value, it'll just show the default value. So I put first script is broken, because literally if it is broken, it will do just that. It'll say it's broken. For example, let's break this intentionally, save it, crack it open. It should say first script if this is the first script. I wasn't really paying attention to which one it is. Oh, maybe not. Didn't break it enough. Let's see. Let's just try really hard to break it. Oh yeah, save. Yeah. Well, I broke everything. Whatever. Well, you know what I mean. Like, it's kind of nice. Usually, it doesn't break the whole thing, but in this case, it did, and so it's kind of nice to see that. Anyways, so I thought that was a cool way to do like kind of like an exception block kind of in MySQL. So again, I use a function here called swap the values of x and z, and I basically did a simple thing where I declare it right here what the values are, and then I guess in the function it just literally just changes the values, and then because that's how you just change the values there. You don't have to declare the variable again, otherwise it'll make another variable specific to the function, which you don't want to do that. So that's how you just change the values right there. So they swapped, and then I said z is equal to the value of z, and yada yada yada. So when you see this in action, we'll refresh that. Oh yeah, let me save that. Refresh this. So right now, z is equal to 10 and x is equal to 1. So 10 is greater than 1, obviously. So if you do that, swaps the first one. So 1 and yeah, so 1 is, that's not true. I should have swapped the 1 is definitely not greater than 10. Sorry about that. I should have swapped those, I guess, minor oversight. But anyways, and I have other if statements here. But yeah, I was just having fun with if statements. But yeah, that was my presentation. I know it's not great, but it was a good learning experience for me. I spent like ridiculous amounts of hours on this. It looks really stupid, I know, but about 15 hours. So it sucked. I'm done.
I was going to tell you when you were trying to run script before those paragraph tags, if you put your script inside of your head tag, it will actually be able to run, because what's happening is that it's loading so much of the page before it hits the script.
Oh, okay.
And if you do it vice versa, it hasn't loaded that half of the page yet.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Thank you. See, this is why we have these meetings. My last meetings, nothing happened. We just wasn't really teaching each other. It was more like, okay, class, and click here and look at that. Isn't that cool? So thank you. Appreciate that output. All right. Well, I'll hand the floor over to Dennis.
All right. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Zoom disappeared on me.
The Atom's pretty zoomed out. No pun intended.
I'm also on a ginormous monitor. Apologize. One sec. I'll try and zoom it up. You guys know how to zoom up in Microsoft or I guess it's just Visual Studio Code?
It might be in view, but I
There we
haven't
go.
messed with that.
Can you see that?
Yeah, that's better, man. Looks good.
All right. So I just made one website. I didn't know that I was supposed to show everything. I apologize. So everything on this website, like the header and this nav bar and every single thing in here is all dynamically made.
Oh, nice.
So when you go into my HTML, it just looks like this. And then on load, I call these two functions.
Okay.
It grabs, well, basically this div, this unordered list, and this div. And so for the nav, it grabs this array. And then I did a for each loop. I don't know if we're technically allowed to do it, but I did. So the for each loops are pretty cool. You just you put your array and you run it on the array. I don't know if everyone knows about this. And then I'm running an arrow function. So it's the same thing as this, but you put your parameters first. And instead of saying function, you can just do an arrow to the brackets and it knows it's a function. So basically, if it's not undefined and it's equal to this, then I will make the H1 tag over here. And then I will add the A tag into it, the anchor tag. And then I'll push it on to the logo div. And then the same thing for the other three things. That's how I got the nav. And then if there's a problem, it'll do an error parsing. And it'll spit out the item that it had issues with. In the middle there, you'll see that it says that it's grabbing, or sorry, it's right here. The href attribute. So it also sets the link it's going to dynamically, and it will jump down here. And depending on whatever it is, it'll set that link. So I guess I messed with variables and everything. I used let because let binds it into this scope. And then right here, this is my associative array, but I built it inside of an array so that I could just write them all one time and then loop over that. And then I'm grabbing the actual array, but then just like an associative array, I can access those properties using the dot method.
I've got so many questions.
All right. And then I append everything back to the document. So that's what I did. What are your questions? I apologize.
That's advanced, dude. That's way past me. So go up a lot.
Here's the top.
Let, can you explain what that does?
So var is cool, right? Like you can declare a variable wherever you want. And it'll keep it technically within scope, but you can have issues where let will ensure that it goes from curly brace to curly brace. So this let right here is only alive from here to here.
Oh, okay. So that is a local variable.
Right. It keeps it scoped.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a constant variable, but you can change it. So I don't think of it like that, or else it confuses me.
Hold on, I've got to write this down. That's next level. It's like,
Right. We should be able to hear ourselves in the recording, correct?
Right.
Yeah, that's very true.
Okay.
That's very true. But writing is always how I memorize things.
No, that's fair.
What is the you were talking about the arrow, the equal sign with the arrow?
Right.
What can you explain that again?
Yeah, so that's an ES6 thing, which is the newest. Well, I guess there's probably one newer one, but it's the most widely accepted by web browsers version of JavaScript right now. So you can just think of this as a function. So the parentheses around item would be just like these parentheses right here on the function add nav items. But instead of having to declare function in front of it, I can just say equals arrow or greater than or whatever sign that is. It's called an arrow function because it makes an arrow and it points to the actual function. So this bracket to this bracket is the function, but it's inside of that for each loop. So that's why I still have this terminating parenthesis for the for each. So it's basically a function running inside of the for each loop.
Oh, so it's like a local variable function, kind of like a local function.
But instead of passing a function, I'm like making up a function right then and there.
That's deep. Okay, so you can't call that function outside of the for loop then?
No, it's specifically for the for loop. I mean, you could write it outside of it and then call it.
Well, of course, but I'm just saying. Yeah. Okay, I'm starting to understand. That's cool, man. Let's see. You made some aliases or something. A.inner.html. What's that?
Right.
Okay. Document.create element A.
Right. So it makes an anchor tag. You pass in the tag, but without the brackets, obviously, or the greater than, less than.
Mm-hmm.
And you tell it creates that anchor tag and saves it in this variable, just like doing the document.get element by ID. So it saves a local version of it that references back to the actual
elements. Right? Because these are actually HTML elements that you're doing, right?
Right.
Okay.
And then I set it to the item. So in this one, it sets it to basics of JavaScript. And then it says, hey, I want to set the hyperlink attribute. And so it calls that function the get URL. And it passes it, comes down here, and it finds, hey, I want this, and I want it to be set to my index. And then it returns it back out and sets it there. And then I append that inside of the list. Oh, whoops, sorry, I'm up here. I append that to the H1 because in there, and then I append this entire thing that has the H1 and the anchor together back to the actual div.
Okay. Show me what this does again. Sorry.
No, you're good. So this part of the function right here just does this. It literally just loads this onto the screen.
Okay.
So you can click onto it and it'll go home. And then you could click to About Us or whatever. But all of that is loaded dynamically.
Nice.
So everything on this page that's text came from this JavaScript.
Okay.
And then I just did the same thing, but I just used a regular for loop down here. See, for let I equals 0, because I only need that I for this for loop. So that's why I'm using let. And then I is less than list items dot length I plus plus, and it'll do the same thing. But that's where I have I actually have an array with an associative array inside of it.
How is it an associative array too? Is the name heading?
Technically, this is an object. This is an object.
Interesting.
So the reason here, I'll explain that real fast. So an associative array is actually a PHP thing, and you don't really do it in JavaScript. We kind of cheat and make it act like one. So you could actually call it, I mean, in PHP, it's a $, and you'd have your associative array, and you would set it to an array. But their arrays are declared like this as a function. But inside of here, you would actually give it the key. So you'd say like, well, I'll just say key. And then you would give it its value. Oh, it didn't like that.
I hate when auto completes when you don't want it to. It's like, stop.
Go away. So you give it its value, and you could do that as many times as you want, and that actually builds the array. And then when you're looping it, you can just give it that key value, and it'll pull it out in that context. When you return it back to JavaScript, it comes in as JSON, which we know is just objects. And so it pulls it out as a JavaScript object. So that's why it's not really an associative array in JavaScript, but we can use it as one.
I guess the reason I'm confused is because I don't know. I guess every object had a key, a name. Like, where's your names? It's throwing me off.
I see what you're saying. These are just like basically anonymous. So instead of having, here's my object key, it's literally just like a blank object with properties in it.
Oh,
okay. I'm using the index of the actual array as my name, if you think of it that way. So I, in this case, and I'm grabbing out the heading.
I didn't know you could do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Man, I'm so glad I didn't have to follow you. Let me go first every time. Okay.
All right. I'm just staring at this in awe. So.
I'll never let you go before us ever.
Yeah, you're going last, dude. Every single time.
All right.
We're
All
all
right.
showing ours, and here he comes. Crush our dreams.
Well, I'm willing to help when I have time. But yeah,
we'll need it.
I mean, you have to also understand I do this at work too. So.
Okay.
So unfair advantage.
But I've only been working there for 2 months, so I'm just saying.
I'll just
This is
play.
what
This is my first year card every day.
Oh.
Yeah. You did good. You did really good. That's really good, man. That's impressive.
Yeah.
It's really clean too. My coding was like especially during the loops, I was so frustrated. I was like, man, I hate my life right now.
Well, is this what your code normally looks like when you're working, or is this just how you wanted to present it?
I can pull up some code. I'm using a framework at work, so it's not like the same. But I work for a mental hospital, so there's no patient data here, so I'm technically allowed to show you. Let's see. Is this for work? Yeah, this is.
Also, by the way, apparently my mic was switched to something that didn't exist on my computer. That's why I wasn't talking earlier.
Oh, well, I just wanted to
I was confused.
I just wanted to call out for you, man. I was like, he's definitely here. He's here.
So Vue's weird. You can actually template out HTML. So that's all HTML. And then I built these components.
Huh.
And then here's the JavaScript. So you can import, I'm importing all sorts of crap. But I'm building this object that I can access all the data in. And then when it mounts, so this is like on load kind of, it will run all this code. And then it just kind of goes through. This isn't the latest version of this either, but
I feel worse, not better.
my code doesn't always look like that.
It still looks. Wow.
It's all right. He does this every day, so I forgive myself. I just hope that the teacher won't compare me to him because
He won't. And my major is software engineering, and I only have one semester.
yeah, I'm a networker. Please don't compare me to him. Please God.
Right. But yeah, so one thing, the reason I like visuals, this one, sorry, I keep calling it Visual Studio, but it's Visual Studio Code, is because you can actually customize this. And the one thing I like is like if I have a question or something, I can literally just hit a question mark and it changes the code or the color of the comment. You can do exclamation points, it becomes red.
That's cool.
So like I think this is what I have it. Oops, sorry, I spelled it right. I don't know if I have that one here at home. But anyway, it just allows you to kind of organize what you're looking at.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's called.
That might help me, especially when I'm really angry. I can do the red one.
Right. Comments. So a lot of editors actually have this if you look into it, and then you go into the JSON for it, and you can actually make these your own.
Oh wow.
Well, I do have a help. It's just
well, that's CSS. That's actually really chill. I understand CSS because it's a lot easier than other coding languages, but I feel like because it's just like it's just chill. I don't know. I like CSS.
Well, this is actually JSON, and if you look at it, it's actually
what? Really?
Yeah, and this is actually an associative array within an array.
Well, fair enough. Well, my whole life is like I don't know.
Right. No, you're good. But see, so you have your key, and then you have your value.
Huh.
That's all it is.
Well, I saw color, and I was like, oh, CSS.
Right. It kind of does look like
You guys
CSS.
keep going with the meeting.
Look at it. They look similar.
Oh, okay. Take care, Jeff. Well, I think we're done really, because I think Zoom will kick us out after a certain time.
All right.
So.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to be watching this again.
Yeah, so will I. That was very informative. Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome.
Yes,
I'm
thank
sorry
you, guys.
threw that much at you.
You did good.
No, I'm excited to kind of go through that and see what I can figure out on my own and then bring it back next week. So
For sure. Well, we'll catch you same place, same time.
All right. See you guys.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.